and this faith journey has produced is peace and joy. And so, God, we enter your gates today with thanksgiving. We are thanking you that we are growing up in faith. We are thanking you that we are becoming and beholding and becoming change for the time we have spent in your presence. Good afternoon, beautiful people. Hi, how are you doing today? My name is Leonore Jones, and I have the awesome privilege of coming before you today and sharing what I hope is provision for your present season. Yeah, I know if you've been watching me for a long time, they're like, girl, that's not what you usually say. Well, that is what I believe God wanted me to say today. You know, I keep telling you guys that we're making some changes over here, and those changes will manifest in things like that, like the way I introduce myself and the way I say certain things. Yes, I am the proprietress of a wonderful kingdom enterprise. Yes, that my husband and I are partners in ministry. Yes, there are new places that you can follow me, like the Cooking Prophetess on Instagram. Yes, we have exciting new books coming, new trainings, new things. However, in this moment, the thing that matters most is that I have come at the instruction of the Father to give what I believe is provision for your season, right? Because that's all Midday Manna is about. Manna was a singular occurrence that spread over a 40-year time span, but manna only fell one time in the Bible. And just think about that. Manna only fell one time in the Bible, in the entire scripture narrative, you know, all thousands of years. There is only that one time, the transition from Egypt to the promised land, the Exodus, is when manna fell. And I think that we all have this Exodus moment. We all have this journey where God is taking us from where we are, from the place of bondage, or in Abraham's case, the place of familiarity, the place of family, right? In Joseph's case, he was run out of his safe place and sent to another. But in all of these cases, and we all talk about it, where you have this moment, and some it's like a big production, for others it's a small, you know, it's a conversation, it's a choice, it's a decision. But for all of us, we have this moment where there are two options in front of us, and we have a choice. We can choose the smaller tree, or we can go after those big tree dreams. And that's exactly what our topic for today is. We're going to talk about those, what I am terming today, big tree dreams. So let's just dive right in, right? I could tell you things like, you know, like this broadcast, share it with someone, but I believe that you're going to do that anyway, because God led you here, or you stumbled across here, or someone did that. Someone actually shared this broadcast with you and like, you know what, she actually makes sense, this is actually helpful, so I'm going to share. So if you are so inclined, right, like, subscribe, share, support this broadcast in some way. If not, I appreciate you taking the time to watch. And for those of you who are watching on the replay, hey, welcome to today's edition of Midday Manna, where we're talking about big tree dreams. So I was telling you in the introduction that we all have this moment where we have to make a choice. And that choice determines the trajectory of the entire rest of our life. And you're like, sis, like that's a weighty choice. And I'm telling you the truth, right? Because, and I think God is gracious in that he gives us a series of stair stepper, a series of small choices, or he lays the choice before you, and then he gives you a period of time to allow you to grow back around to the original choice. Either way, there is a, because if we're going to say that every individual has a unique purpose and gift, then there has to be a moment, ladies and gentlemen, where you come to a choice about whether or not you're going to walk in purpose or you're going to stick with what you know. And Nadia, Leah is already here with me, right? She's already here with me because like they're come like we it's like we so like things to fit in their small places and everything to go where it, and this is going to go right here and this is going to go right here and then this plus this equals this. I think because we were created within boundaries that and structure, they give us comfort, and to a certain extent we've been socialized for things that don't fit into our paradigm to be intimidating. Like think about, and I'm not saying whether or not it's good or bad, but just look at the narrative. Like when we read the creation account, God made the world for man, and then in all the world he put them in a garden, right? And so there is safety in these boundaries and this beauty. Ooh, y'all, what if though we were created to live within these boundaries and sin is the thing that broke it? Because think about that. God made the world. He encapsulated the world. He created the world. And then in all the world, he put this garden. And it was God's intent for us to probably live forever in the safety of this garden with him in communion, face to face. And sin is the thing that caused us to be kicked out of what God had created for us to be in. And I think as humans, we are always running and trying to get back to the safety of the garden, the safety of the boundaries. Here's the reality though. Until we get to heaven, we won't get there again. So in the meantime on earth, God leads us on a journey that will take us back to the safe place he created. In the meantime, that also means that we get the privilege of holding on to the person of Jesus as our safe place. Right? Because that's the Bible then, because after all of that, where is it? Like, he's gonna be our shelter and under his wings. So he knows that our heart is always longing for this place of safety. And what God has done until he can get us back into the garden, he has made his presence our place of safety. Y'all, this ain't even what I came on to talk about, but this is what is ministering. And so I just want to encourage the person who scrolled across this and your entire life feels like chaos, where you feel like you have an innumerable amount of choices and you have no idea which one is the right one, what to go, what to do. I just want to submit to you, before I even talk about the choices you make, I want you to know that it is possible to exist in a place of safety, and that place of safety is in the presence of your Father. Go under his wings. Safely abide there. The Bible says the name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous can run in and be safe. Run into, Jireh is my provider. Run into Jehovah Nissi. He is my banner. Like run into, pick the name that applies to your situation. Your Jehovah Shabboah, the God of the angel armies. Jehovah Gabor, the Lord mighty in battle. Which name do you need to run into and be safe in today? And it is from that place that now I present to you the rest of this discourse that we are going to have, right? Well, Nadia, and I keep saying Nadia because that's your name, right? But okay. So listen, hot-footed, pick the name, run there, and then from that place is where you make the choice. So here's the choice. Um, Here's the choice, because again, I'm saying that we talk about things like people have, major decisions that they have to make, and because we say and that we have this unique purpose, this unique thing, this unique equipping that God has given us all to fulfill this. And that is not to say that it is only this, but I believe that there is at least, it's singular, but I believe that all the other things are concentric circles that flow from that singular place. And so we have this thing that we are supposed to do, that we were uniquely and intelligently designed to do. And God is like, all right, I'm laying it before you. I'm laying it before you. And I'm going to start by giving you a dream. This is not a new dream, guys. It is a dream that I had. I believe the date is May 17th or May 19th, 2017. Y'all hear how long ago this was? 2017. And why am I telling you a dream that is some 7 years old almost? Well, 7 is the number of perfection. So I think the dream is for this present season. That's first off. But a few weeks ago, I found this journal that I had written the dream in. And what's interesting is the journal is even older. The journal, I started writing in it in 2010. So that's 14 years ago. My first entry in that journal is like 14 years old. And I haven't seen it since then. And a few months ago, I found, ma'am, this is Jesus. This ain't me. This is Jesus. This is my obedience, right? I come on, I'm obedient, and there's always one that needs to hear what I have to say. And I say that it applies to you, that look, come on, help me teach this. Like, right. And it applies to you that when you are obedient, there's always one that needed what you were supposed to say, do, be where you're supposed to be. So your obedience produces something. All right. But let's get off that soapbox. So I pull out the journal and I'm reading it. And this is maybe a month ago, if that long. And I come across this dream. And it was as if God was like, this is for now, because the dream so applied to where I was, and even more so to where I am today, that it is like, oh my God. And so here's the dream. I write that I am in a garden, I guess, or I am at this place, and there is this big, beautiful tree. Like huge. Think the biggest tree you can think about. And it's got all this wonderful fruit. So whatever the biggest tree in my head is, a mango tree. Excuse me. Because mango is my fruit. And if there is a tree that's full of fruit that I'm all excited about, it's going to be that. So it's a mango tree. And it's huge and it's big. And I go and I see it. And there's this big, beautiful tree. But the fruit is up high. Like, so you would have to get up in the tree, climb in the tree to get to the fruit. Right near it, off to the side, is another smaller mango tree. And this one, the fruit is right there. I don't have to do much to get to this fruit. And so I go and I do what we often encourage people to do in today's society. I go and I take the low hanging fruit. I go to the tree, the smaller tree. It doesn't have as much fruit, but the fruit seems easily accessible. And so I go and I choose that tree. As I go to choose that tree, I see that there's a snake in there. And a voice comes and tells me that the big tree is actually my destiny. The big tree is for me. But I went and I chose the small tree. And he was like, now go back. And this is the voice telling me. The voice tells me, now that you know the danger of the small tree, because there's a snake in there. And that snake is coming for you. Now that you know this, go now to everybody else and tell them the danger of choosing the small tree. That's literally the whole dream, guys. There's this big, beautiful tree. And I'm like, so that dream is so counter everything that we are taught. Because again, we are like, how many times have you been encouraged, particularly in this entrepreneurship, in this business marketplace? How often are you encouraged to go after the low-hanging fruit? You know, get all the things that are right there, the easy choices. How often are we encouraged to do that? And in my dream, like again, it's this, there's two trees, this big one, and the big one has more fruit than I could eat by myself. And the small tree has way less fruit. But because it's small and I think it's easier, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go to this. I'm gonna go to this. I'm gonna get the low-hanging fruit. And God is like, but there's a snake on there. And that snake is poisonous and it's dangerous. Whereas if you expend the effort and climb the big tree, y'all hear me? If you expend the effort to climb the big tree, there will not just be fruit for you, there'll be fruit for everyone. Y'all, this is fresh revelation that God has given me as I speak. Right here, right now, you are literally listening to me process with God stuff that he's telling me for my right now. Like legit, because we're like, we're gonna go after the low-hanging fruit and somehow think that we'll have, but the low-hanging fruit, there are dangers of low-hanging fruit. That's the first thing. There is danger to low-hanging fruit. That's number one. And the truth, and so when I did that, God was like, now take this and go. And so I was like, oh, because the encouragement was, again, at the end of the dream, to go and tell everybody the danger of the small tree, the danger of the low-hanging fruit, the danger of choosing what you think is easy versus forfeiting this big, beautiful destiny that God has for you. And I'm like, okay. So literally later that week, I had been asked to speak at Recharge, which is prayer meeting at my church, okay? About literally that God showed me that dream. And then I was like, well, God, is this what you want me to talk about? Because yes, I'm that child. I take nothing for my own. I'm not like making no decisions out there. I literally asked God everything. Like I asked God today, should I be live today? And then should I talk about this? And he said yes to everything. And I'm like, okay. And so, y'all, this is the first time my business line is like ringing off the hook. I promise you, 3 calls back to back to back, and it hasn't rung like this in a while. And I'm like, but I'm not interrupting this live. This live is for those of you who are watching. Your destiny is at stake in this present moment. If you stumbled across this live or this replay, you have choices. You have big tree dreams in front of you. There is this big choice, and it is intimidating. It's going to require you to climb the tree. It's going to require you to, expend yourself. It's going to require work on your part, and your first efforts won't produce nothing. Hear me? Because again, the fruit of that tree wasn't low hanging. So your first efforts, getting up in the tree, ain't gonna feed you. You're gonna have to climb a little bit. And some of us probably chose the big tree, and you're like, maybe I should get down and go back to the small tree. I am telling you that your destiny is at stake. Your destiny is at stake. This live is for the person who knows or who is possibly thinking, is this as big of a deal as I think? I just stopped by to tell you, yes, this is as big of a deal as you think it is. And so, y'all, I went there, And I'm like, okay, Jesus. Okay, Jesus. So that week I did, and I was supposed to, and I'm hyped now. Y'all don't even know I'm hyped. I was like, I'm supposed to speak at Recharge, and God was like, go and tell them the dream, and then tell them about the dangers of the small tree. And I'm like, what? What dangers of the small tree? Where am I gonna get that? And God was like, no, read Genesis chapter 3. The dangers of the small tree are in Genesis chapter 3. Y'all, Genesis chapter 3. And if you are a Bible scholar, you know what Genesis chapter 3. It's the fall. It's the fall of man. And we are reading Genesis chapter 3, and we're going verses 1 through 5. And I'm going to read it aloud, then I'm going to tell you what God said. And then today, we're going to pray. We're going to pray, okay? I am going to, Nadia, it's on YouTube. So if you pull up my YouTube channel, you can watch it on YouTube from wherever you want to. I am live both on Facebook and YouTube. It's my Leonore Jones YouTube page. So if you go to Leonore Jones or Leonore Reynolds Jones, search for that. I'm live there if you can't do the Facebook. So Genesis chapter 3, verses 1 through 4, it says, now the serpent was more crafty than any other beast of the field that the Lord God had made. He said to the woman, did God actually say, you shall not eat of the tree of, let me read slow, you shall not eat of any tree in the garden. And the woman said to the serpent, we may eat of the fruit of the trees in the garden, but God said, you shall not eat of the fruit of the tree that is, in the midst of the garden, neither shall you touch it, lest you die. But the serpent said to the woman, you will not surely die, for God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be open, and you shall be like God, knowing good and evil. And then I want you to jump down all the way to verse thing, and okay, we ain't gonna jump down nowhere. We're gonna stay right there. And so again, that's Genesis chapter 3, verses 1 through 5. And I read that aloud, and I'm going to give you the 3 dangers of the small tree, right? Because if you're just joining me, let me catch you up. Back in May of 2017, I had a dream. In the dream, there are 2 trees. In my head, they're mango trees because I love mangoes, and I think that is the best fruit that God has ever made. Whatever your fruit is, it can be that. For me, it's mangoes. But there are 2 trees. There's this huge tree. I mean, big tree that I can't and the fruit is up in the tree. So I know to get the fruit off that big tree, I have to climb the tree, go in there, and climb up to the fruit. So it's going to require work. Not too far from that, I see another tree. It's smaller, and it doesn't have even half the amount of fruit. It has way less fruit than the big tree, but the fruit is close to the ground. And I go over there, and I'm like, I'm going to pick off the big tree. Right when I go and I pick off the big tree and I'm going, I see the snake in the big tree. In my dream, a voice comes to me and says, now you know the danger of the small tree. Go. And he tells me the big tree is your destiny, but you chose the small tree. Now I'm giving you the option to choose the small tree, knowing the danger, or go after the big tree. Go, and then he tells me, go tell everybody about the danger of the small tree. That I had that dream in May. Y'all, this thing applies to me right now with where I am. It probably applies to you where you have some decisions ahead of you. You have, and you probably have been going across, you probably have come across low-hanging fruit. Because little while I just talked about this idea how as business owners, even as Christians, sometimes it seems like we are encouraged towards the low hanging fruit, towards the easy. Like we talk about, this and this, and you can do this, and we act like if you just snap your fingers, God is just magically gonna fix everything. And that's not how it works. It requires effort. It requires sacrifice. In fact, God told us, pick up your cross and follow me, right? Pick up your cross. So I want to tell you that low-hanging fruit is dangerous. And then I'm not going to tell you it's dangerous and not tell you what's the danger. So that verse we just read is the danger of low-hanging fruit. In Genesis chapter 3, verse 1, it says, now the serpent was more crafty than any other beast. And I thought to myself, why would the Bible tell us of the intelligence of the serpent when his quote unquote, the person that he was dealing with was the woman and the man who had dominion over him? Think about that. The Bible goes to tell us of the craftiness of the serpent, knowing that we are dealing with the man and the woman who, back over in Genesis 1:28, God had given them dominion and rulership over everything, including this serpent. But the Bible tells us about the craftiness of the serpent. Here's what I believe God is telling us. The choice of the small tree represents a choice of wisdom. Wisdom will tell you that the small tree is the better option. And you might have to, finagle a couple of things, because it's going to eventually lead you to something. And I'm going to tell you what it's going to lead you to. But think about that. I believe that the fact that the Bible goes to tell us that the serpent was so crafty is that the choice before you is a choice of wisdom. Are you going to do what is wise in your own eyes? Or are you going to yield to the wisdom of what the Father had told you? Because when Eve got here, she got here with the wisdom from the Father that this is not where you're supposed to be. This is not the tree. Don't eat from it. She came with wisdom from the Father, but she wanted to be wise in her own eyes, and her choice of wisdom in her own eyes exposed her to something that was wise in and of itself. So this serpent is this matter of like, who are you going to believe? Are you going to believe what God told you? Or are you going to believe what you see? Because again, the fruit is low hanging. It looks appealing. It looks like you have less to do. Are you going to believe God? Or are you going to believe what you see? Because yes, Nadia, faith without works is dead. But faith, the Bible tells us, not just that faith without works is dead, but faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of what? Things not seen. Just because you can see the fruit in front of you doesn't mean it's good for you. Wisdom. God said, this big tree, this is your destiny. This is your destiny. This is what I'm calling you to. Yes, it's going to require some work. Yes, your first efforts ain't going to produce nothing. Yes, it's going to be hard. Yes, you're going to have to climb. Yes to all of those things. But just because, and just because this one seems easier doesn't mean better. That's the first thing. So when we read Genesis chapter 3, verse 1, the first danger of the small tree is that it is a choice of wisdom, and your choice of the small tree is a choice to walk away from the wisdom of the Father and seek your own. Genesis chapter 3, verse 1. Dangers of the small tree. Big tree dreams. That's what we're talking about today. Big tree dreams. All right. So not only is coming over here on this small tree, dealing with this low hanging fruit, thinking that I'm going to get it and all of this. What happens when Eve is at this small tree? It says the serpent, which was this crafty and this wisdom that was not from the Father, now it comes to her. And what does she do? Eve engages in dangerous conversation. That entire conversation she had was a dangerous one. Well, what did God actually say? How many voices are asking you to tell, oh, did God specifically tell you that you had to quit your job? Did God specifically tell you that you had to go back to school? Did God specifically tell you that you had to move to so-and-so? Did God specifically tell you that this person was your husband, wasn't your husband? Did God specifically tell you, start this business, start this ministry? Did God specifically? Dangerous conversations. And what are they questioning? Your conversation with the Father. So the dangerous conversation is not just dangerous in content, it's dangerous in intent. You're like, sis, you said a whole lot. Content. He's the specific. They're like, did God actually tell you? What it's made up of is dangerous, but the intent behind it is dangerous because it's it's doing two things: introducing doubt and causing division. Because he caused her to doubt what she thought she had heard. That's what he did. Did God specifically tell you? This conversation caused her to question what she thought she heard her father say. And that questioning allowed space for doubt to creep in. And that doubt separated her from the wisdom of the Father and from her destiny. That doubt. Did God specifically tell you? Oh, and then she says what she thinks she heard. She says what she thinks she heard. And then he jumps on that. If she wasn't at this tree, she possibly would have never had this conversation. There are places and conversations you are having now simply because you are in the wrong place. You are at the wrong tree, friend. And they're causing you to question everything. Do I really love God? Do I really do? Like you are at the wrong tree. Low hanging fruit ain't for you. Did God really tell me that I'm supposed to? Low hanging fruit problems, small tree problems, dangerous conversations that are dangerous in content and dangerous in intent. I'm telling you, evaluate the conversations. But also, let's, and this is something I'm throwing in here for y'all as I'm processing, but let's also realize, right, that like, look at the silence too. Because as we read further down, it says in verse, what is this? Verse 6 now. It says that so when she saw the fruit was good and good for food and that it was delightful to the eyes and the tree was supposedly going to make one wise, she took the fruit, ate it, and then she gave it to who? Her husband who was with her. He was with her. She gave the fruit. So think about this. She's entertaining dangerous conversations. And the Bible doesn't record that Adam ever interjected. And I'm not saying he did or he didn't. But I'm saying his silence speaks volumes. Who has gone silent around you as you are engaging in these dangerous conversations? Because he was right there. He was with her. They were with you up until you were like, nah, I'm a, and they was just being like, no, you know what? I'm good. They ain't leave you, but they are not entertaining this conversation. People who are for you will not entertain a dangerous conversation with you. They'd be like, nah, I'm not talking about this no more. And your feelings are hurt over their failure to engage in a dangerous conversation with you. But they not the snake. They not the snake. Don't be mad at the people in your life who are refusing to engage in your questioning. Did God really say? And think about this. Why? So intent and content, those words are speaking so loudly to me, right? Because a couple of weeks ago, one of the things I told you, and I've said it before, but I know I said it for sure a couple of weeks ago, was this idea that hearing precedes seeing. And you're like, sis, what? Hearing precedes seeing. In the Bible, it says, God said, let there be light. And then there was light. So we heard the voice of God before we saw what God said. And so when the serpent, here again, another thing about his raggedy intent, when the serpent is causing you to question what you heard, he knows if he can cause you to question that you heard, what you heard will never come to pass, because you got to hear it and understand it before you see it. But you just want to talk to everybody and anybody, and you want everybody to have a say, and you want this prophet and this apostle to speak over everybody. Look, we are still in line in what we're talking about. 2 weeks ago, I came before you and I talked to you about like everybody can't speak over you. Last week, we talked about having authoritative words. And now I'm talking to you about dangerous conversations. Y'all, look, and this is Jesus. Like, I didn't pick this. I didn't make this a series. Literally every week, I told y'all I did the same thing. God, am I supposed to go live today? Oh, yes. Okay. What am I supposed to talk about? And either the day before, the day of, or a couple of days, he'll be like, this is what I want you to talk about. And I'll be like, okay. And then I go live and I tell you what I believe. And I come here with just a few skeletons. And then while we are talking, God gives me all the rest of what he wants to say. And if you feel like I'm coming for you, go talk to Jesus. Sis, yes. Because even within yourself, dangerous conversations, because there are like, let's be clear, while the enemy cannot read your thoughts, he can interject thoughts. Thank you. Let's say that again. Think about the times where you start entertaining these negative self-talk, and Holy Spirit, who have been with you this whole time, he goes silent. You go off and you doing all this foolishness, and you're like, God, where are you? With you. He with you. He just ain't saying nothing. For why? For why? But at Tahali's point, you every thought that comes ain't from you. So-and-so did something and you big mad. And oh, they're so terrible. And you don't really feel that way about the person. But you get the choice to either I'm going to embrace this as truth or judge it against the truth, who has a name, and the name of the truth is Jesus, and say, what did Jesus say about this person? What does Jesus reveal to me about this person? And if that does not line up with what Jesus has said about this person in my life, then I discard it. It's not true. Dangerous conversations within yourself, particularly I'm married. Yesterday was my 18th wedding anniversary. Dangerous conversations in my with myself in my marriage will have me thinking that my husband don't love me. Oh, because he didn't take out the trash, and so he didn't prioritize me above what? And yes, it's a random, arbitrary, foolish example, but that's what we look like. She literally had the father, like God himself told her. How many times you about to do something and you like, God himself gonna have to tell me? God himself told her. And despite what God himself told her, she's here having a conversation with a serpent. God himself told you, and you here having conversations with yourself, with all these other raggedy snakes in your life, and quick and trying to like, oh shit, I really do what God. All right. On to the last point, ladies and gentlemen. On to the last point. So right? So why is low-hanging fruit? Why is the small tree dangerous? The first reason the small tree is dangerous is because it shows you and opens you up to a lack of wisdom, right? Lack of wisdom looks like it has you, and hear me, it has you choosing your wisdom over the wisdom of the Father. That's number one. Number two, small tree, low hanging fruit problems are dangerous because it's dangerous because you have dangerous conversations. And Holly gave us sometimes the dangerous conversations are within yourself or with yourself, and sometimes it's with others. And you sometimes take silence as a lack of support. Dangerous conversations. Right? Listen, tell the truth. Things ain't been working yet. And see my previous statement about the tall tree, because you are on the big tree. The fruit ain't low hanging, so you're going to climb the tree. You're going to do the work to climb the tree. And your first efforts ain't going to produce no fruit because no fruit is down there. No fruit's down there. On big trees, the fruit is up high. It requires more effort. Like the first fruit of the big tree is higher than all the fruit of the smaller tree. But okay. And so we go through that. And what is the consequence though? Because why is this whole small tree? Why am I so hyped? Why am I talking to you about this and about these big tree dreams? Because what's at stake? What's at stake is destiny, guys. Remember the dream. In the dream, God says to me, the big tree is your destiny. You choosing the small tree is forfeiting your destiny. How do I know? Look at what happened to Eve, guys. Like she chooses her wisdom over the wisdom of the Father. She entertains this dangerous conversation and then she acts on what she heard. She eats the fruit of the tree. What was her consequence? Here's the thing. Her consequence was not just hers. Every person who came after Eve suffered the consequence of her choice of the small tree. I want you to know that you think your choice of this big tree or this small tree is just about you. It's just about your family. It's just about my husband. It's just about my kid. This tree, this choice has far-reaching consequences beyond what you can believe. And it ain't just about literal family. So don't tell me, oh, I'm not married. Oh, I don't have any children. Didn't I just say probably 10 minutes ago in this same broadcast that your obedience produces something? Right? And so your choice to be obedient and to do this, somebody who needs what you have is going to get it. And so every time that you choose to be eating off this low-hanging fruit, the person whose destiny, whose life was tied to yours based on the fruit that you were supposed to produce on the big tree, whether or not they're related to you by blood, you have done them a disservice by your choice to not go where God called you. Big tree. And then every person thereafter, it just multiplies. Because in this generation, it might be 2 people. In the next one, it could be 6. In the one after that, it's 40 or 30, right? And that's real multiplication. Because this generation, it's 2. It's the husband and the thing. The next generation, 2 times 3 is 6. And then 6 times 5 is 40. 30, I mean, sorry. The number 40 is in my head. And so it could be 6 times 5, which is the 30, plus 10% for interest, because 3 generations removed, it had a 10-degree shift in change. And so instead of just 30 people being affected, an extra 10 people were affected, and now we're at 40. You keep thinking that your life is just about you. It's not. To every blood-bought believer, your life is not now, nor has it ever been, just about you. If you are saying, I accept the sacrifice of Jesus, I want to live for him, I'm going to answer his call in Matthew 28 to make disciples, your life is not just for you or about your family. They lied. You can't do anything you want. Well, actually, you can, but be prepared for the consequences. So, having said all of that, and my time being well spent, I came and I told you that the dream, the choice that is in front of you, the choice of the big tree or this small tree, and I'm being obedient. God told me tell everybody. Case in point, I'm live on the People's Facebook. I'm live on YouTube. This will be saved. You can share it. You cannot. You can like it. You cannot. But I have been obedient. My question for you is, are you going to do the same? Are you going to be obedient? Why should you be obedient? Well, I'm so glad you asked. I'm going to tell you this one thing that I learned in my devotion today. Woo! Today. I'm not telling you stuff that I heard years and months ago. I'm telling you today stuff. Why should you be obedient? I'm not even going to give you the regular, your obedience produces something. I'm going to tell you what I read in my devotion today. I'm reading a devotion about Psalms 23. And the last day is about the verse that says, he makes, what's that? Prayers to table in present, my cup running over. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. That's Psalms 23, verse 6. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me. And the author goes on to say, notice, and this is not how she said it, but this is my takeaway. Notice the formula as you would have it for goodness and mercy. It follows you. And they say when you examine that in the Hebrew, that it's actually chasing you down to violently overtake you. But it's not before, it's after. And what are you doing? Because it's about sheep. So they're following their master, and the goodness and mercy is running after them as they follow their master. And the next example she gives is in Deuteronomy 28. In Deuteronomy 28, it says, the blessings of God will chase you down and overtake you. If you keep these commandments, if you do the things, what's it saying? When do the blessings come? After you have done the things. If you keep the statutes that God laid out, if you made the choices, what did it say? The blessings will come after and overtake you. Now, if you're watching me and you're like, oh, that's Old Testament, I'm going to tell you that the whole Bible says the same thing. There is nothing in the New Testament that truly contradicts the Old Testament. I don't have time to unpack that. You can go do your own Bible study, do verse upon verse, precept on precept, and see. There's nothing in the Bible that contradicts itself. Nothing. So this whole, anyway, let me climb off my soapbox. But I'm telling you that because then you're like, okay, I want the New Testament because I'm under the new covenant. Great. The new covenant says, seek first the kingdom, and then what? All these things will be added onto you. All these things. So the idea is you are busy seeking after God, doing what God said. And then as you are doing that, what happens? All the other stuff, whatever all these things are, they come after. Why am I telling you this? Because we've had it wrong. How many of you have been out here waiting for the blessings to come first? Waiting for God to provide first, waiting for God to move first, no, your obedience comes first and then God. So when you are thinking, I'm going to do this and then, I'm going to wait for God to put a ladder beside the tree. I'm going to wait for God or for the tree to grow out. And so for several branches, all that time, you're in disobedience because delayed obedience is disobedience. And is it any, I can't get the word, but is it like, why do you think you've been waiting so long? Because you are literally out of order. The order is you follow Christ. And as you follow him, these things will follow after you and catch up to you. And don't think because you're standing still, they're going to catch up. Because if you stand still long enough, you lose sight of God. And those things are surely following him as well. So I encourage you today, get in order. Follow after God. Seek first the kingdom and its righteousness, right? That's right standing, right behavior. Seeking first the kingdom and its righteousness, and then all these things will be added onto you, including all the blessings and favor of the big tree. I thank you so much for joining me today. I pray, like I always tell you, I pray that the latter half of your day is greater than beginning. And I just pray blessing. Oh, no, I said I would pray. So I'm going to pray. Father, in the name of Jesus today, Moses told the children of Israel, I stand before you today and I lay before you blessings and curses. I implore you today to choose life. Well, today I think I'm laying before the same thing, but what I'm definitely laying before your children is big tree dreams and low-hanging fruit. God, I pray today that you would give your children the wisdom, the courage, the strength, and the discipline, God, to pursue the big tree. And for those who have started and are questioning because they have not produced anything, I pray that you allow them to continue to do what Paul said and to press towards the mark of the high calling. God, do this thing for us and forgive us of our sins and our shortcomings and for all the things we've entertained that were not of you. Purify our thoughts, our motives, and our intentions. And God, once we do this, we will be careful to give you all the praise, all the honor, and all the glory, because we ask all of this in Jesus' name. Amen. Bye-bye. What our trust and this faith journey has produced
is peace and joy. And so, God, we enter your gates today with thanksgiving. We are thanking you that we are growing up in faith. We are thanking you that we are becoming and beholding and becoming change for the time we have spent in your presence.